policy. If you just stay in the village, for example, and keep on, dealing with the village issues, your levels keep going lower and lower and lower. I think, however much you know, two things.
Yeah.
One, you can't know it all. You have to keep getting advice. However learned you are, it doesn't end there. You have to keep reading. You have to keep studying. You have to keep exposition. So I agree with the Guineans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I guess a good place to start off then to get into this conversation is that with the demise of Baba in October last year, that soon after that, it started to appear, whether it was public perception or whether it was reality, that the threads around ODM had started to unravel.
Yeah.
Now we are in March, 6 months after the fact, and it still seems to be that that's the situation.
Yeah.
Is it? As party chair, is that the situation?
So the one is to, admit that we lost a great leader, and it was a big gap. Baba had been in the trenches and out 40 years plus. So he had been a big cog in this country. The country misses him, but he had also been a big cog in the ODM party. There's a saying that whenever a big tree of that magnitude falls, the buds will scatter. And maybe then patch after that. And so it was almost certain that there was going to be, some push and pull and so on before we settle. But looking at where we are today, I think we are more successful than many political parties in consolidating back at the party. We quickly put in place leadership of Dr. Buru as a party leader. We consolidated the positions of the rest of the leaders. We brought our parliamentary group together. We brought our MCAs together. We brought our governors together. And yes, there are those who have differing opinions on one single issue. By the way, we all have the same position on many things, but there's one specific issue that people feel differently about. And that is the issue of whether we support the broad-based government or we don't, and how we move into the next election. But you see, with that, Mdu and Grace, we have 109 MPs as a parliamentary group. If you look at those who feel differently, they probably after Baba leaving, there are those, by the way, MPs who left before Baba even passed. The Karolis of this world, the Onyonkas of this world, the people who were never with Baba even. But those who've moved after Baba's departure is only, Sifuna, Babu, and Amisi.
So you say they've left? Have they left the party?
They have not left the party, but they are in what they are propagating is different from the party's position.
Okay.
This is what I mean. Because the party takes positions on various matters, and members are expected to fall in line with that position. Currently, they are propagating a different position. And why do I say this? The party has made a decision, and even before Baba left us, that we were in the broad-based government. They say this government is not something that they want to associate with or talk about. That's why I've said they've taken a different position.
Okay. When you have a whole secretary general and one of the deputy party leaders, of course, publicly defying the party's position, is it that you failed to convince them why they should join the rest in supporting President William Ruto's ambition?
When you go into party meetings, by the way, it's never unanimous. People convince each other. But then the majority's decision, many times it's on consensus, but where the consensus is not possible, the majority's decision carries the day. And I want to say the Central Committee of the party, for example, has 15 members, and 2 out of the 15 don't agree with the position of the party. The NEC has 50 members. In the NEC, 4 out of the 50 members don't agree with the position of the party. So what I can say is that they have failed to align with the party's position. So they did not convince the majority of members on their position and then refused to align with what majority members agreed on. And Grace, you belong to, groups and organizations, and sometimes you don't necessarily agree. But when a decision is made by your group, you fall in line. And if you are the Secretary General of that group, which means you speak on their behalf, then you have you have no choice, actually, because you cannot speak on behalf of the organization and speak in the opposite direction. It is untenable.
Okay. Governor, for over 20 years, this is the first time that we are seeing a split in ODM, and it's really sad when we're having a certain faction that says they want this and another faction clearly saying that they want another. You are part of the team that initially, not too long ago, were criticizing the Kenya Kwanza government, but now, of course, you're siding with the broad-based government, and now you're aligning with the president and his policies. One may ask, where did all things change? And then number two, when Raila Odinga was alive, as much as he was still in the broad-based government, he never shied off from criticizing the government. So far from your end, is everything sailing smoothly, because we've never had you criticize anything about the broad-based government?
Yeah, so let me start by the first point you raised, that this is 20 years and ODM has never split. I want to tell you that all these people you see, including William Ruto, who are founder members of ODM, whether it's Ruto, whether it's Musalia, whether it's... Look at every leader across this country. Many of them founded the ODM party. But they left at some point, and they grew to, become whoever they are today. Some also fell off. You remember we had secretaries general like Ababu and the others. They've fallen off along the way. So this is not the first time that 2 or 3 people feel like they have to leave the party, or they have to take a different position. So that position, even when Baba was here, there were people who, left, and Baba continued to consolidate and still build on the party. So this is not unique. It's not the first time. Coming on to the issue of the broad-based government and that I have been a critic. It is true. I did not vote for William Ruto. Neither did I vote for the broad-based, the Kenya Kwanza government. I've also been a member of parliament for a long time on ODM, and I have been a fierce critic of regime after regime, because we've been in the opposition largely, and that is our responsibility. Now, when we for purposes of stabilizing the country in 2024, moved into a broad-based arrangement, then we have to find points of convergence. And you're right that every time there was something that went wrong, Baba always said no. And even when things go wrong, for example, even on my end, when I feel, for example, there's infringement on our party's basis, or when I feel something is wrong, I may not come to public criticism. Sometimes I do come to public criticism, but many times I raise it in the relevant places that I feel that this needs to be corrected or this needs to be worked on. If, for example, on devolution, we have said publicly we want the monies to be increased, and that one we continue to push. But Grace, we are part of this broad-based government as ODM. It's good for people not to be. It's good for us not to cheat the public, to come here and say, no, we are not part of it. No, we only sent people. No, we only did this. It's just important for us to tell the public the truth, that ODM, our deputy party leaders are now ministers in government, people who are our deputy party leaders, our chairman, our minority leader. We are part of the broad-based government. That is one. And therefore, as much as possible, we have to support what we think is positive around it.
Does it fall in line with what Raila Odinga fought for the longest time? And I asked that question, piggybacked on another, when the things that Edwin Sifuna, who, by the way, is he the Secretary General of ODM or not?
We removed him as Secretary General, and he went to court. So he's a court Secretary General at the moment.
He's a court-agreed, court-allowed Secretary General of ODM?
He's a court-agreed, and the matter will be determined today. Yeah.
So as the other side of the leadership of ODM, you do not recognize Edwin Sifuna as a Secretary General?
No, because, we removed him. And we removed him for reasons that we stated, okay? And which is that it was no longer tenable for him to speak on behalf of the party because any party decisions, and by the way, it could be me, for example. The party could take a position that is different from what I believe. And I would say, look, I can no longer speak, this language. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I cannot, it is no longer tenable for me to hold this position. Yeah. I will be a member of the party.
Okay.
I will be a governor of the ODM party, but it is no longer tenable for me to be spokesperson on behalf of the party because I don't believe in those issues. So we removed Sifuna. We have Catherine Omanyo, who's a Deputy Secretary General, who's now the one acting as Secretary General. But the court, when Sifuna went to court to challenge the process of his removal, the court gave him a stay. As a law and order party, we have to recognize that. So today, we will know from the tribunal, and this is the political party's tribunal.
Yeah.
We will know what their position is on the matter.
Okay.
If they say that he has been reinstated, then he is reinstated, and we have to now, if we still believe on our former position, we have to begin a new process.
Okay, sorry. In that regard, the things that he's been saying are the things that he has been. The things that he is saying have been the things that he was saying 6 months ago, a year ago, which in that process, Raila Odinga endorsed not once, several times, and said that when Edwin Sifuna speaks, he speaks for the party. Raila Odinga was unequivocal in his position about the words that he spoke. Make that connection between the things he said then and the things that he's saying now are still the same. So would that position change if Raila Odinga was still alive today and still said that these things that Edwin Sifuna is saying about the party remain the party position? Would Gladys Wanga's position change?
Let me say this, and as I said, we owe the public the truth. Okay, when we moved into the embracing the broad-based government, Baba brought the issues to the Central Committee. The Central Committee discussed them, and we agreed. You remember President Ruto came out at that time and said, "Look, I'm willing to form a broad-based, government. I'm willing to invite any other political parties to the table." The other political parties did not make a response, but as ODM, we did. And the person who, even read that statement saying we were now going to be a part of the broad-based government was Edwin Sifuna himself. And I cannot tell you the number of times, even in meetings, that we discussed the issue of Edwin Sifuna's personal positions vis-a-vis party positions. And the difference was when Baba was there and he told Edwin Sifuna, look, this one, I think, don't go too far. Don't go here. Don't go there. He listened. When it comes to our new leader, whom we need to support more because he needs to stabilize, and stabilize the institution. That is not the case. There is no respect. There is no, he can say, let's do this or let's do the other. And in fact, Edwin Sifuna came to Mombasa for the National Governing Council of the party and took the party leader through the process of his confirmation at the NGC and swore him in. Actually, the person conducting that whole process was Sifuna. But then he came back and said, this party leader is in this position illegally. You see, so it's a world of difference. He would never say that to Baba. He would never say Baba is illegitimate. He would never come publicly and criticize his leader. And that's why it was always possible to bring things together, because all of us could fight even down here. But all of us would say, when Baba will tell us, we will align. But in this case, even the leader that he put there in Mombasa, he came and said that is an illegitimate leader. So once the leader is delegitimized, this is the difference between Raila era and Dr. Buru era. The Sifuna of Raila was more refrained, could listen to Baba, could step back and I know numerous times that Baba said stop, and he did. But in this case of Dr. Buru, there's no stopping him from anything. He first of all said the leader is illegitimate. Once you delegitimize the leader of an organization, there's no organization there.
Governor, when you talk about the new leadership that is expected to be ratified tomorrow, including, of course, the leadership of Oburu Oginga, there's this question of the party has 4 deputy party leaders. There was no deputy, 3. There was no deputy party leader that was felt to be fit in that position as we wait for this special NDC that will ratify a certain member. Why did the party rather go for someone who was not part of the hierarchy of the deputy party leadership?
Grace, you remember even when Baba was leaving for AU, he brought in Professor Nyang' Nyong'o was not a deputy party leader, but as a founding member who would unite people at the time, he brought him in to be acting party leader. When you lose a leader of that magnitude, there's likely to be push and pull. So you could make a decision to have a figure that can unite in the meantime, can bring people together, can consolidate. Before then, people go on to the issue of choosing the leader. And by the way, it is the deputy party leaders themselves who proposed Dr. Buru. Dr. Buru was proposed by Abdul Samad and seconded by Simba, in the recognition that with that sudden demise, just propping one person over the rest, because these are peers, If we had only one deputy party leader, it might be a different story. But these are peers. So if you prop one and not the others, you can cause a lot of division. So that also was the wisdom that Baba used when he was going to the AU. And it's the same wisdom we applied. We said Dr. Buru has worked with Baba. They are, brothers. He was Baba's advisor. He was, he can be a stabilizing factor in the, as we move towards the general election.
All right. Ndo, before we talk about the special SDC that is expected to happen tomorrow, there is this question of should Kenyans trust ODM, because it seems like it nowadays changes depending on political convenience. Now that you're in the broad-based government, you're supporting whatever the president is saying and you're going forth with what he's saying. So should it really be trusted, or do they just follow political convenience?
I think ODM should be trusted because we stick to some of our founding principles. How? When we went into the broad-based government, remember, it also wasn't easy. People also came out and said, Baba, you've betrayed us, you've done this, you've done the other. But for the sake of the country, he decided that we move forward. But he didn't move forward on its own alone. He said, these are the things that I would like to be addressed. Devolution issues. These are issues that ODM stand for. And because of that stance and that 10-point agenda, we moved from 380 billion to 405 in this financial year. In the next financial year, it has been agreed that we would be over 450 billion. That's an increase of about 80 billion in 2 financial years for devolution. That's what ODM stands for. That's something that ODM fights for. On the issue of human rights and these issues around human rights violations, I think one of the things we put there was the issue of compensation for victims of post-election violence. And this year, in this supplementary budget, we've put in 2 billion to start the issue of compensation through the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, or whatever infrastructure they will set up. I think that is a big step forward for what ODM believes in. ODM believes in inclusion of minorities, and that's what we stand for. We are a party of minorities. We are a party of embracing. That's what Baba built. And you look at the appointments that are being made. In the beginning there was a problem around appointments. It was looking heavily, just one-sided. When we had appointment of PSs, we had, young people from Kilifi, people like Fikirini Jacobs. We had another young man from Samburu. We had people from Kajiado. We had people who had never thought they would be in government. If you look at the spread of development across the country, and I say this not just for the sake of saying, but there are regions in this country, particularly ODM regions, that have been left behind as far as development is concerned, because of the political position that ODM has taken over the years, whether it's in the coast, whether it's northeastern, whether it's parts of the Ma, or whether it's Nyanza or western. And the kind of things we see, like, for example, now the SGR moving from Mombasa all the way to Kisumu and on to Malaba. These are things people hoped for, but it never happened in the past because sometimes of political positions, but the broad-based government has brought it together. If you look at an international airport in the Mara, in Narok, this is the kind of progress that I can say we have achieved through this cooperation.
What is the reason, and it might sound bizarre that I ask, but what is the reason of the insistence of remaining in the broad-based government? Is it for Kenya, or is it for individuals within the party structure who are still seeking political expediency and or relevance in the next process of the country's politics? Why stay?
Our insistence on staying in the broad-based government is many-pronged. One, it is an agreement we made. It is an agreement we made. Even Baba, made it that we would be here until 2027. Number two is the things we discussed around the 10-point agenda. We have seen progress in its implementation.
Okay.
Number three, what I have just discussed now in terms of what the broad-based government has been able to achieve for regions that would otherwise have been left behind. And this is the reason we move this forward. No individual, and I know they say sometimes, oh, Mnalinda Tumbo, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I've gone to my people in Homa Bay, for example, and I've asked them, do you want us to leave? They say, but this is the government that has done the most for us since independence.
In Homa Bay?
In Homa Bay, in Kisumu, in Kakamega, in Mombasa, in Narok.
And that is since you joined the broad-based government. Before that, it was different.
Well, in 2023, there began some processes of the government, reaching out to many parts of this country. And I saw that the president came there I can speak more, solidly about Homa Bay, but also about the entire regions of the ODM party. So our insistence is based on the progress that we have seen and the fact that no Kenyan or no part of this country is being left behind in terms of, and I'm not talking about mundane things, I'm talking about fundamental things. The Lake region, for example, depends on that Lake Victoria. If you have landing sites, if you have 10 landing sites along the lake, if you have a rescue center for our fisherfolk, if we have the Lake Victoria Ring Road coming from Busia all the way to Muhuru Bay, if you have the level 6 hospital in Kakamega, being improved and taken over, then these are benefits for the people. Is there any benefit I accrue as Gladys Wanga from the broad-based arrangement? None.
Allow me to take you back to the leadership of the party, because like I said, it's one of the key reasons why we're having the special delegates convention tomorrow. And you have said that when Baba was going to the AU, he left the party to Anyang' Nyong'o. One may question, why didn't he believe in his brother Oburu then, that the party now believes in him?
I think when Baba was there, it would... I believe, at the back of my mind that he was there and going to the AU and leaving his own brother to again continue with the party. It might have looked like, well, are we in a family affair
But
here?
the party has left the party to his brother now.
Because he's not there. He's no longer there.
So that's not a family party, having that now the brother is the one who
Takes over.
And the daughter is also being fronted as a deputy party leader of the party.
I think that... the Jaramogi family have been a big part of Kenya's politics, like many other families, the Kenyatta family and others. So I think Dr. Buru, apart from being Raila's brother, is also a very, very experienced politician. He's a firm hand. He's a safe hand. And I think Winnie is also in her own right a strong politician. She's a member of the East African Legislative.
Is she fit for that position, and do you approve of that?
I think Winnie can be in any position she'd like. She's a strong leader. Yeah, she can, there's, like any any of our other strong members. She can fit in any position that she'd like,
Will her proposal come forth tomorrow, or it has to wait for the normal NDC that comes at the end of the year?
You got it. I'm happy that now it's understood that we have a special delegates conference, and we will have a normal delegates conference, which will an ordinary one at the end of the year, where elections will be held. For this particular SDC, we are discussing because when you look at our constitution, when you convene an NDC, the only matters that can be put on the agenda are matters that have been agreed upon by NEC and processed by the NGC. So this is what we are putting forth tomorrow.
A couple of things to be looked into, and one of the matters that you brought up is the issue of development. And it seems as though we are taking people in the direction to believe that the role of government, which is to secure the livelihoods of Kenyans primarily, has been reduced to a partnership whereby then you can be promised development because of that partnership, against the backdrop of the responsibility. It doesn't matter if you're in an agreement, or it doesn't matter if you're in a broad-based government, development is supposed to happen regardless. But here we are saying that it is because of this now that development has happened. Are we not still doing a further disservice to people who we seem to say we are responding to and caring for? And we seem to hoodwink them, Governor, with all due respect, to imagine that it is because of an agreement that we see development, as opposed to insisting, like Raila Odinga did often, that development must happen regardless. So now it's almost as though we say, now you have a road because of this agreement, as though you shouldn't have a road if there was no agreement, Governor.
Ndu, you're right. This country, everybody is entitled to service from the government, whether they elect it or they don't. Every person. I'm governor of Homa Bay. There are people who voted for me. There are people who didn't. But each and every one of them is entitled to services. No part of this country should be left behind because of their political position. But what has been our reality? What has been our reality as a country? Because we are not new. We didn't come to this country today. We have seen systemic marginalization of parts of this country just because of the political position. And I can tell you that because I've been in Parliament 10 years, we have seen what has happened in the past. So what we are saying is the broad-based government, which we as ODM are part of, now considers every part of this country. And I don't want to say that it is because of this arrangement. But I'm happy that in a broad-based government where we are, Lamu, as much as Wajir, as much as Homa Bay or Kajiado will be carried along. And that was one of the most important fundamentals for Baba. Inclusion in economics. And he didn't say just include ODM areas only. No. He said, let every part of this country feel like they are Kenya, so that we are not in a situation where some parts of this country are left behind. So to answer your question, are we saying, oh, now we are getting roads because of this arrangement? What we are saying is, what we are seeing from the broad-based government is that no part of this country is left behind. And that is my view of the matter. Somebody else can challenge it.
But are you seeing it now that you are in the broad-based government, or you're part of the broad-based government? Because like I said, not too far along, you have fierce critique of it. But now, since you joined the two-term, sorry to say, but choir, development is going now. You're saying things are working. Is it now because you are part of it and not like no longer the opposition?
Yeah, and I'm not part of any choir. That also I must clarify, because the ODM's positions on these issues is very clear. One, we are strengthening our party. Two, we want to get into structured negotiations for a pre-election agreement. Once we do that, pre-election coalition agreement, once we do that, then we can say, because we have agreed, we will support re-election. Now, we are supporting the broad-based government. Because we agreed to it.
Until 2027?
Until 2027.
Okay.
Until 2027.
All right. As you talk about that power brokerage, because that's what is happening. That there are people who are not just sitting in the room, Governor, and saying, okay, well, it seems as though ODM is the pretty girl that's being courted by everybody, but there are other girls who were in the room before that. And they're already saying, well, that's okay, ODM, you have your conversation, but we have been here. And that there are some things that we are not going to allow. This comes right front and center with the deputy president. And they have said it's not going to happen. It remains where it is. Party leader Dr. Oburu Oginga has said, we want power. And he said it. It's become sometimes the subject of jest, but he said it very clearly that we want it too. This pre-election agreement that you mentioned, speculation, again, is part of politics, whichever way we choose to look at it, that the optics play a big role here. And it's been said, there's something that Gladys Wanga may have been promised. There's an idea that she may be courting, that she could be a major power player in the next process. Mm-hmm. Does that affect anything? And we can call it deputy president. Mm-hmm. We can call it a powerful position in the next administration. If that were the case, do those things cross your mind? Do you flirt with that idea at all?
I think, let me say that as we go into pre-election coalition discussions, and this is not the first time ODM is getting into coalition politics. In 2013, we went with CORD. In 2017, we went with NASA. In 2022, we went with Azimio. And even now, we are preparing ourselves for the next coalition. We are not looking for anybody's seat. We are just coming to the table and saying, ODM is the largest party south of Sahara and north of the Limpopo. Okay. We have membership from Vanga in Kwale to Todonyang in Turukana, from here Tana River to Nyatike Wetorumundu. So we are coming to the table as a strong party. And when we come to the table, we will place our issues on the table, and we will say, this is what we are pushing for. We are pushing for issues. There are issues ODM has believed in. We are pushing for devolution. We are pushing for economic justice. We are pushing for human rights. These are things that must be foundation of a government that ODM is part of. Then we are pushing for power, because no political party is formed to sing in a church choir. Every political party is formed to capture power. In that case, we are not looking for anybody's position. When we come to 2027, all positions are vacant, including mine as governor. We all go to seek re-election. So there'll be nobody's position that we're seeking. We will just be looking for what would be our fair share as an equal partner with UDA on the table.
Will ODM field a presidential candidate in the 2027 election?
This is part of the discussions that we will have. We have three ways here, Ndu. We are looking at this pre-election coalition agreement. If we have an agreement, fine. If we don't have an agreement there, we're looking at discussions with, because what our resolution is we will negotiate with like-minded parties, starting with UDA. Then we will, if there's no agreement, we hope there can be, we will go to other parties. If we don't agree with anybody, we will go our own route to the next election. So these three options are available to us. Is all this premised on interests of an individual or certain individuals? I must come very clear on that. I'm governor of Homa Bay, and I'm seeking re-election as governor of Homa Bay because I've just done my first term. God willing, I should be re-elected in the next term. But when we go to negotiate on the table for a movement of nearly 8 million people, we must negotiate fair. So that if we say the presidency is here and the deputy presidency is here for ODM, it will be for ODM, and ODM has processes for identifying who becomes that person, including an NDC. That NDC for the next election, which we have said is before the end of the year, is the NDC that nominates the presidential candidate of the party. And if you are in a coalition agreement, the person nominated can now become the running mate. So is this about Gladys Wanga? No. I have a position. I am seeking, I'm working very hard. By the end, done huge transformation in Homa Bay. I think they will re-elect me by a very big percentage on that table. This is not about individuals. This is about a movement that has been built on blood, sweat over the years, that when we go onto any negotiating table, we must have what is a fair share for the movement, for the people. Their issues must be on that table.
Let us talk about the SDC that is
Yes.
coming up tomorrow. The much anticipated, has been called for months and months. You know, they wanted that particular delegates convention compared to a parallel, what you call a rally, because an NDC is only called by the party, and the ODM party is the one who called for it. One may...
Hey, you're a master of the ODM constitution.
These are the people who are in the background. We brought them out today.
Yeah, and you've said that for a longest time that it is only the party that calls for an NDC, so the other one is just more of like a rally. A big question is that is this NDC just going to cement what a few individuals want or propose, or is it going to be people are going to be given an opportunity to air out and decide on the way forward when it comes to the leadership and the key issues that were gazetted for the SDC?
I think this is going to be a people's process. They have to agree. Mm-hmm. They can also decide not to agree with what we have put on the table. Mm. It is their choice. The delegates will come. We will say this is the agenda. We are ratifying what the NGC did in Mombasa. Do you agree? They can say no. We don't agree, Bana. Mm-hmm. You know, that is a possibility. But they can also say yes, we agree. So it is a process for people to make their decision on behalf of their party. There is no stifling. It will be live. The questions will be put in the open. Mm-hmm. So really, there will be no forcing or hiding. No, the people will make their decision, and the decision they make is the decision that the leadership goes with. There's no. The people are supreme. ODM is a people's movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a chairperson of the party, how does it feel when you have in this SDC and yet there's a parallel one with maybe some members will jolt and go to the other party? Now, as the party's chair, how does that, really feel when you don't have like the whole, as they say, the whole chungwa?
I think I've explained earlier, Grace, that we have consolidated for what we've gone through, the kind of loss we've gone through. We have consolidated quite a bit of the membership of the party. A few, and the few is maybe, I would call it less than 10% of the membership, if you look at it from a leadership perspective, or you look at it from our grassroots leaders' perspective, because you have the county chairpersons, we have the branch chairpersons, and majority of them are in agreement that we consolidate the party in the direction that we are going. Mm-hmm. So a few members may decide that they want to take a different view. It's their right. Yeah. If they want to hold a rally, it's their right. If they want to go to Gikomba tomorrow to sell mtumba for the day, it's their right. We have 3,000 delegates attending the NDC. Some may not attend for whatever reason. It's really, truly their right to go in whichever other direction. We may, and at some point, a point comes where we say, look, we've tried this, we've tried to consolidate as much as possible. Maybe we agree to disagree, Yeah.
While that is happening, you talk about the people, the issues that people are resonating with. Yeah. And like we said, optics in politics probably pays 50% of the entire process. What we see and what we perceive to be the thing. The rallies, the coming together that, according to you, Court Secretary General Edwin Sifuna is holding around the country is perceived to resonate with Kenyans in large numbers. We can't run away from that reality. There's something he's saying, which interestingly enough is no different from what he was saying 6 months ago, that the people of Kenya are in direct touch with. Not all of them, but the people who we can see the numbers. Does that do something in your mind when you imagine that there are people who are listening to and following this message, who is still a member of ODM that could very easily tilt in another direction if truly it is the people and their issues that are being followed? What does that do in your mind?
The people and their issues, and I've been around here for a while, and sitting governments, movements that are in government, many times, people, especially around cities and so on, go more with, because me, I've been an oppositionist. It's a very easy agenda to sell. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong there, that is wrong there. And people will reason. If I go to whichever place and those people have a bigger persuasion around the issues of one term or whichever way, they will come in large numbers. But I have gone also around this country and spoken to ODM supporters. And while they have, issues to raise, maybe whether it's cost of living or whether it's, they have issues to raise, but they have told me boldly that we feel it's better for us to remain in the broad-based arrangement.
Do they understand what that means, really? From your understanding, when they tell you this, Governor,
Yeah.
when they say that we feel it is better to remain in the broad-based government, this is somebody who has health issues, who has education matters, who has food on the table issues. When they tell you that we prefer to stay in the broad-based government, do they understand what that means? Or do you take it at, they've said it and so we move on?
Well, yes, they do understand. And this is the reason I think they understand. When we went to Busia, for example, there's a big industry, being built there. For the first time, they're going to have a stadium out there. For the first time, they're seeing this Lake Victoria Ring Road. For the first time, the railway is going to hit Busia and it's going to create dividends. So they say that from that perspective.
Okay.
They say there might be issues, but if we look at the landscape, this is the argument. If we look at the landscape, what alternatives exist? Do we go to an arrangement that advances ethnicism, tribalism, that feels some parts of this country are shareholders, others are not? Where is our place there? What is the end game? They say, okay, you might be saying good things, but what is the end game on this whole affair? Do we go where we have been embraced, or do we go, and they understand by the window more than you can imagine. And I'd like to invite you to one of our meetings anywhere. They understand more than you can imagine. And while it's sensational sometimes to have, this is wrong here, this is wrong there, when you face this conversation, the people will ask you, and they're asking them, by the way, they're asking even these people, tell us what the end game is. Tell us how this path takes us to a better future.
Ndu, I think speaking about the rivalry within the two factions within ODM, Osotsi, that is one of the deputy party leaders, said there was reconciliation efforts by a team led by former Busia Senator Amos Wako that had been ignored. Is there such reconciliation that you're aware of trying to bring the party together?
There was a lot of effort to keep people together. We had meetings ourselves and we said, okay, what are the issues on the table? The party leader, Dr. Buru, called Sifuna, called Osotsi, Amos Wako. Everybody, was trying to see if we can bring these issues together. But there was a fundamental issue, two fundamental issues. One, how does the party progress to face the next election? That was one big question on the table. And there was a fundamental difference of people who felt we cannot have any discussion with William Ruto. He's one term, he's gone, we are not going that direction. There's also a critical mass who said we feel like we need to we need to pursue an agreement for purposes of 2027 and the future. Okay, so that was the fundamental point of departure. But the second was, even though we are still discussing these issues, we must have a situation where the party can communicate its resolutions. We were in a central committee, for example, in Vipingo, where the party leader himself has to read the resolutions of the party because we don't have a secretary general. He's keeping all the he's skipping all the meetings. So we can't be in a situation where the party is having conversations, discussions, resolutions, but the person who is supposed to speak them is speaking in the exact opposite direction. What would have been more decent was for the Secretary General to say, look, my position is no longer tenable because the resolutions the party is making are not things that I can communicate.
Have you had words with him? And I don't mean in the negative. I don't mean words like, have you had an argument with him? I mean, have you spoken with him? Because prior to all of this fiasco, I would imagine that you used to have conversations.
Yes.
Party chair with the party secretary general would have definitely been in communication all the time.
Yes, we had conversations.
Do you speak now?
Not much, no.
And what is the fundamental reason for that? Aside from him being far off, because we can disagree on something fundamentally, but we can still have a conversation. But in this case, you're not talking to each other. It sounds like there may be a little bit more than just difference of opinion.
We haven't spoken lately, but Sifuna is still Senator of Nairobi. I still have to, be responsible to the Senate, for example. So we can still speak on those issues.
Interestingly enough,
I speak with Senator Osotsi all the time. About these issues, but even our appearances in the Senate and so on and so forth. We speak all the time.
Is there any truth to you not then going towards to the Senate PAC for questions around Homa Bay?
Yeah. What happened is the Council of Governors, you saw, raised some issues around the CPAC. They said, we can appear in all the other committees, but they wanted us to have a conversation with the leadership of the Senate on some issues around the CPAC before we appear. So it's not only Homa Bay. If you look at all the counties, majority of the counties have not been able to appear because we are waiting. Maybe next week we will have this meeting so that we iron out some of the issues that were emerging before we proceed. This was a collective decision of the Council of Governors. Last week I was in the Senate. I was appearing before the Committee on lands. This week I'll be appearing on another committee, or next week I'll be appearing on another committee. So I have never run away. Even CPAC, I have appeared many times before Sifuna himself and the others. I appear because I'm able to defend my record in Homa Bay. So nothing stops me from appearing. But in this particular case, there's a collective decision of the Council of Governors. And I have to be part of the collective responsibility of the council.
But Governor, but when it comes to accountability in the Constitution, is there anything like the Council of Governors? Because there's some governors who are appearing. Okay, I happen to cover CPAC. There are some governors who are appearing and saying this is a personal responsibility on accountability. They're not going with the wave of a Council of Governors because according to the Constitution, there's nothing like the Council of Governors.
Yeah.
So when it comes to personal responsibility, do you find the need in you to appear for the sake of the residents of Homa Bay?
I will appear as soon as the matter is resolved. And I think the council exists, that we have been working on putting it in law. But the council exists, and even the Senate knows that they operate all the time with the Council of Governors. So as soon as we are able to resolve the issues that are on the table, we will appear. We are just here. We are going nowhere.
Okay.
We will go, and the accounts are there. We will go and appear and address every issue that has been raised in the audit. And luckily for Homa Bay, there are no issues around loss of monies. There are issues on processes, on issues which we will appear to clarify on each and every issue. So Grace, at no point will we run away from our responsibility to accountability to our people. We cannot.
Okay.
We will go at Akama, even if we are told this or the other, we'll be there. We'll stay put. And we have appeared. I have honored every single invitation of the Senate. There's no, apart from now when we have this issue of the council, there's no day I have been put on a list that these are governors who are not appear. Grace, if you cover a CPAC, I appear. I show up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look into tomorrow, and even as this winds down, what are the outcomes that, as a party chair, you are looking to by the end of tomorrow? So
I'm looking at consolidation. I ability to bring as many of our members together as possible with a common vision about where we want to go. So, for example, the question around ratification of the leadership, that's a matter there. I hope that that can happen so that questions around legitimacy of the leadership are dealt with once and for all. So that we that's a mundane question that we should do away with. Secondly, we want to hear our party members as far as what direction they want us to take. We have a proposal on the table as far as building a pre-election coalition. We want them to agree with us or tell us the direction they want us to go. So if we get clarification on those two issues, we will move with bigger precision, bigger focus, having shed away all the legitimacy questions, but also having gotten direct approval to engage in the issues that we want to engage with as far as building a pre-election coalition is concerned. And also, finally, to give confidence to our members that it may look, and I don't want to blame the media, but I think they really blow the ODM issues way out of proportion in terms of...
So it's not a big deal is what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is there's no split down the middle.
Okay.
There's a consolidated party, but there are few members who feel different. Yeah.
So ODM has a consolidated position.
Yeah.
There's some members who don't agree with it,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that the party is split, is what you're saying.
It's not split. Actually, this thing of, there's Linda Mwananchi, or Linda Mwananchi, I think is a vuguvugu. When I look at the poster, for example, there's no ODM on it. There's no orange on it. It's a vuguvugu that wants to go in a certain direction. But ODM as a party is consolidated. There are members who don't agree. Are they consequential members? Yes, they are important members, but they don't agree. But there are few, while the rest of the big majority of the membership are facing one direction. Yeah.
ODM goes into an SNDC tomorrow, and ODM party chair and Governor for Homa Bay, Gladys Wanga, has been with us this hour looking at some of these pertinent issues. She says there's no split in ODM. There are just some members who don't agree with the consolidated party position. All right. It's still to watch. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You couldn't say it better. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We look forward to the next conversation with you. Good
Asante.
morning, 8 a.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.